a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes Radio, where we are changing the world one ohm at a time. Here on the Dr. Kevin Show, we like to challenge everything and everyone and still try to keep a spiritual perspective on things, because there is such a thing as a spiritual perspective. And we do our best to try to cover all the bases. For those of you, we took part of the summer off as we did the year before. I hope you enjoyed the replays, but we're getting ready to enjoy an exciting and interesting fall lineup of some returning guests, some new guests, and want to hear from you. So please come to facebook.com/MyDrKevin. Like the page because I'm a likable guy. I post the Dr. Kevin Show there. You can also find me on facebook.com/DKRN.FM. That's DKRN.FM. But go on the page, leave me a message. Tell me who you would like to see get in front of Dr. Kevin and get taken outside the box and behind the curtain and express whatever they think their load of crap is that's going on in the world today. This is the first Wednesday, the first Thursday, I don't even know what day of the week it is, of the month. And for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, our first Thursdays, we've called them everything. We've called them thirst-quenching Thursdays. We've called them through the spiritual lens. We call them some kind of neutral news, I think it was. But you know, it ends up being the same thing. It's Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed, who has a drive time show, 4 to 6, Monday through Friday in Manchester, New Hampshire, 95.3 FM. And you can go to IPMNation.com and check it out and listen and call in and stuff like that. And Matt joins me sometimes just at the beginning of the month. Sometimes he pops in more than once in a month. If there's a lot going on, he likes to talk politics on his show. And I think it's important that spiritual people and people that are interested in spiritual topics should also be interested in what's going on in our world of politics. Matt, how are you? Welcome back. How was your summer?
Well, it's good to be back, Dr. Kevin. You know, summer's my favorite time of year, so I always kind of hate to see it slip away. I get a little maudlin about it, but no, it's been good. How was your summer?
My summer, to be honest, has been a mixed bag, and those things happen. We, Jeff and I, on the very happy, positive side, have expanded our family and are now the proud dads of 2 very rambunctious female kittens, Maya and Freya. And so we have that going on, and that's great. And, did get to do some fun things this summer. On the other hand, as you know, and as my audience knew listening up to through the winter and fall of 2019, my father passed in March. I had to get my mother moved up to here because she couldn't be left on her own down in Florida. And, elderly parent issues, they can really suck a lot of time.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? It's too late to trade them in.
Right.
So you do what you do, or, you decide. You decide, what kind of child am I going to be? It isn't about what kind of parent they were, and that's what I hear some people do. They say, well, they weren't a very good parent, so why should I be a very good child? Well, maybe they were being the best parent they could. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. And you get your right to say, hey, I'm not doing that. That's up to you. I don't judge people. But remember, it is never a reflection on them if you say, hey, go screw you, my 83-year-old mother that's having cognitive issues who just lost her life partner of 50 years. Figure it out on your own. I'm going to do a cat's in the cradle on you. It doesn't say anything about your parents, and it says everything about you. So that's how I feel about it. What are your thoughts on that? Should we just dump them when they get to be a pain?
No, but I think that there is a lot of that, and I think that there's something really wrong. Hi, Russ. There's something really wrong culturally in this country because, in many other cultures, they very much take the opposite approach, and they, they really take care of the elderly. And for some reason, that just tends not to be the trend in this country, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if just culturally we're a little bit too self-absorbed. I don't know what it is exactly. Too much narcissism, but and my parents fortunately are still young enough where they're still healthy and don't require any help. But I've known people, and I'm sure you have too, who even just going to the nursing home or wherever it may be to visit their parents, they act like it's this huge inconvenience, like they're so burdened by having to take a Sunday afternoon and go, pay a visit for even a couple of hours. It's really unfortunate, and I don't think it's something that is ever going to be fixed. Particularly, there doesn't seem to be any kind of movement to treat elderly parents better in this country. I don't know how we got there, but that's where we are.
Well, I think that it's a double-edged sword, Matt. I think that we have, looking at people, you're a little younger than I am, but not that much. How old are you now?
I'm in my mid-40s.
Oh, yeah. So you are actually younger than I keep on forgetting. I keep on forgetting how old I am.
Well, that's a good thing.
So
you should forget.
but I was born in 1960. I just turned 59, and I was at the beginning of the trend of multiple marriages and latchkey kids and cats in the cradle parents that worked, and then and then we got seduced and brainwashed and hypnotized by the media into thinking that old is a drag and old isn't cool, and that we need to separate ourselves from age because age is ugly. And we have had a real, more so in this country. A lot of other countries look at age as being beautiful. Mm-hmm. We've made it ugly and undesirable and something that you don't want to be around. And I think that combination of things, and people retiring younger and say, well, if you don't want me around, then I'm going to move to Florida. So, these are all contributing factors on both sides. We after World War II, we really broke down the old-fashioned family unit that you stay most of the time within 50 miles or 25 miles of your family. And, and grandparents helped with grandkids while parents were figuring out how to make ends meet and do whatever they needed to do to make the, that kind of family unit exists in this culture only in people that are first and second generation Americans is where you still see it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say that there are, there are as many times where the kids just returned the abandonment of the parents when they got old.
Yeah, yes, that's a very good way of putting it. I think you're right.
We go back to that Cats in the Cradle song, the dad was too busy to go to the games, was too busy to show up, and now the dad's retired, and he's saying, well, when are you going to come visit me, son? And he's like, well, I'm busy. I got kids, and I got this, and I mean, so there's a lot. It's not a simple answer, and that's why I try not to judge people who don't, say I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to show up on Sunday at the nursing home. Well, we got to look at the whole picture. But again, it doesn't ever say anything about your parents if you don't show up to be supportive in their time of need. It only talks about you. Mm-hmm. It says, what kind of person have you chosen to be?
Right. And the cycle continues. Yeah.
Yep. And the cycle continues. And there are those people who clearly have showed up more and been there during this time to either be present or that and help with the situation with my mother. And there are those that are completely absent. And there may come a time when they are in need of something, and I may or may not decide to show up for it. I may be like,
right.
So it's not easy. So
yeah.
So what else exciting went on in your summer? Anything before we get into the hot topics of the day?
Well, I mean, Good. Yeah, the show is great. Of course, I'm on weekday afternoons, 4 to 6, and always a great time. Really looking forward to in January when we have the New Hampshire primary. I'm not sure how that's all going to look logistically exactly, but I know that for 1 week, we'll be doing something. Basically, my show and the morning show here at WMNH will be doing some sort of combined effort, and we'll be hanging out with the rest of the media here in Manchester. And I'm not sure what that's all going to look like yet, but I'm looking forward to that. The only really bad thing that happened this summer is I'm still suffering from it a little bit, but I have a pinched nerve in my neck, but I'm recovering from that. A minor thing in the sense that it happens, it's very, very common. It happens to lots of people, but extraordinarily painful. The most pain I've ever been in my life was when this first happened, the pain in my arm and whatnot, but it's much better now.
Well, you and I weren't in communication much during the summer, just life was happening and we were just in different directions. But if you had talked to me before, I would have told you there are much better places on your body to get pinched than your neck. But, you didn't ask me. I couldn't weigh in on the subject. So you just
I had to learn the hard way. Yep.
you had to learn the hard way. That's okay. So no, sorry to hear about that. That obviously I've been having a little neck issue recently myself. I've been doing the 2 to 3, sometimes 5, 1 week, 6 visits, 6 times a week visit to the gym and working with a personal trainer and doing all that crap to be healthy and and on the top of the game.
Yes.
So what are you doing for self-care these days? Because self-care is a thing that we bump around, we talk about as being important, but oftentimes it doesn't seem to be quite as important as either time on our phone or time on our game. Some people could say that that's self-care, and that can be at some point self-care. It's like sometimes a glass of wine can be a bottle of self-care. But probably 3 bottles a night might not fall in that category anymore.
Right.
Right. So, playing a little bit on the phone or the game or a computer could be self-care in small doses as long as it's balanced out with other things. So self-care is a topic which gets talked about, but I don't know how well it gets applied. So what did you do for self-care this summer?
Oh, not much. I mean, I'm so busy, and you know how it goes when you're busy. You don't do the self-care, But I try to do things, I mean, in terms of health and whatnot. I like to walk and run and things like that. That's a good way to get some solitude and whatnot. But I haven't done a lot for self-care because I've just, I'm as busy as I've ever been, and you know how that goes.
I certainly understand being as busy as you've ever been. I'm having that experience myself. But is it mostly a good busy or a bad busy?
Oh, no, it's good busy. It's good busy, yeah.
Okay.
No complaints. No complaints from me.
So I would love to hear from our listeners. What did you do for self-care this summer, and how did you work it in? And what may have not happened? Maybe if Matt had done a little more self-care, maybe he wouldn't have got a pinched nerve.
No, that may be true. That may be true.
Yeah, sometimes I know part of my neck problem was I'm so busy that I'm spending too much time in awkward positions, like in front of the computer and other things like that. And now I'm having a little bit of neck problem myself. And, when we get forced to do self-care, when we get forced to slow down, when we get forced to something, it's usually not pleasant. So give us a call. Our call-in line is 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. Or go to and call in with what you did for self-care this summer.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Oh,
Dr.
hey,
Kevin, are you there?
Welcome back. Yeah, I'm here. And welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show, where, as always, on the first Thursday of the month, You actually missed because I stupidly had the mute key on, which I do sometimes, so I can not be gulping on air. Remember, I'm up to 3 bottles of wine. Isn't that what I said? No.
Oh my goodness.
But first Thursday month, I'm here with Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. Matt, you know, it's been a while since I've been to your show. I know I'm always welcome. I know my schedule is not allowing for it this day because I am just right out straight, which is hard considering you know me. That's not a word I use often. But you must be having a blast with all of the political stuff going on. And am I going to see you on Saturday when I'm there stumping for Mayor Pete at the caucus?
Where is that? Where is that happening?
In Manchester.
Oh, yeah, see, I didn't even know. I didn't realize that he was going to be in Manchester Saturday.
No, it's a Democratic. There's a meeting of there's some meeting that I've been invited to be sitting with Mayor Pete thing from 9 to 3 on Saturday, but it's going to have representations of all the candidates.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see. So it's not a Mayor Pete event specifically. I gotcha. I think I know the event you're talking about now. Because I know there's some state reps who are going to be at that. Yeah, no, very interesting. I'm not actually sure yet about this Saturday for me in terms of what I'm going to be able to do, but it would be great to get to that. Now, so do you know what other candidates are going to be there? I know I know Mayor Pete is your favorite.
I'm trying to figure out who. I'm not sure who else is going to be there because I got it because I'm on the Mayor Pete list.
Yeah.
It's some meeting of delegates or something. I'll have to see if I can look it up and forward it to you. But
yeah.
I got the very distinct question, the very distinct feeling that this is not just a Mayor Pete event.
Okay. Okay.
Some kind of Manchester caucusing or something, Democratic caucusing. So I don't know, but we haven't talked for a couple of months. What have been some of your most absurd highlights of what's been going on in politics over the last couple of months? What are the ones that got you the most fired up, laughed the most, made you have to, take a deep breath and count to 10? What's been going on politically that has really stood out to you, especially things that the average person might not have understood the significance of?
You know, it seems like it should be such a simple question, but we live in a time where there's always so much going on that it sort of all becomes a blur. One thing that does leap to mind for me, because you mentioned, something that, where I had to sort of stop and count to 10. When did the send her back chant in North Carolina? When was that? I mean, that was pretty recent, right? That was since we last talked.
When what happened in North Carolina?
When at the Trump rally, when they were chanting "Send her back."
Oh yeah. That happened after we last talked, between then and now. Yeah.
So that was something where I really, I saw that online, and I had to just kind of sit and seethe with rage for a few minutes when that crowd was chanting that about Ilhan Omar, because I found that to be so horrifically racist, and it made me extraordinarily angry. On a positive note, I'm glad that when the Trump rally happened here in Manchester, just a few blocks up the street from where I am here at the station right now, apparently there was none of that. But yeah, I just that was something that really upset me when that happened in North Carolina.
Yeah, it is I think it woke up a few people. The ones who still want to be heartily asleep and say, "Oh, that wasn't racist. Oh, you're making that up just because you don't like him." We still got those out there.
Oh, of course.
But I have to say that I think that watching the flow of social media and some other things and that you started to see some of his more loyal people start to turn on him at that point. I mean, I think that that did him no favors. It may have pleased his base, but I think it may have shrunk it a little. That's the vibe I'm getting from looking at it. That there are just a few more things that are going. That there are people that were already on kind of shaky ground, trying to see how much longer they could ignore what an idiot he was, what a bigot he was,
right.
what a racist he was, and that just ripped another layer. And it's so funny because you would almost think that he's setting himself up to lose, almost like he doesn't want to win. And the job is over his head. This is the poster child for the Peter principle, getting raised to your level of incompetency. He's now been in office long enough that his statements are coming back to bite him more and more. I mean, really changing a weather map with a Sharpie to include Alabama and then insist that it's correct.
Right.
You don't have to have a triple-digit IQ to start to go, huh?
But I don't think he's intentionally trying to set himself up to lose. I mean, as you know, I don't believe he ever wanted this to begin with. I don't believe he ever wanted to be president, and I don't think he ever expected to win. But now that he is, I mean, this to me is the great sort of tragic irony of the Trump presidency. Now that he is president, he has to remain president because as soon as he's not president anymore, there's going to be a series of indictments falling onto his head. So he has to stay president as long as he can. I don't think he's trying to set. I think he's just so oblivious. I don't think he understands, what he's doing most of the time. But I think he does understand. I think that he is savvy enough to know that his base, to a large extent, doesn't mind how ignorant he is or how foolish or how racist or any of it. They'll go along with whatever. I still think he has a great shot at winning re-election for that reason. So I don't think he wants to lose, but I think he knows that most of these people are going to stick with him no matter what.
Well, I'm going to put it this way, which is I don't think that he's intentionally trying to lose. I think intentionally I think that he's trying to win because he's afraid of that it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket. And I would hope not that any of our Democratic candidates become presidents, that they would automatically pardon him to preserve the dignity of the office. Because he shot that horse in his first 100 days. There was no dignity left in that office, okay? That horse's carcass is rotted meat now. And, but, there is the one president, even if it's of the other party, semi-protects the other president because it's a courtesy thing, and he's the exception to the rule. He needs to go down and he needs to burn. And there's a lot of Americans that aren't going to get healed until they see him screaming with the flames up his ego.
Well, he won't be able to be pardoned anyway in terms of, one of his big vulnerabilities is the investigations being carried out by the state of New York. And I didn't know this for a very long time, but, until it really became relevant with this presidency. But a president cannot pardon someone for state crimes, only federal. So he can't be pardoned. He can't pardon himself. In terms of what the state of New York is, they're just waiting until he's out. And he might, for real, end up in prison. His best hope is to die in office. I almost hate to say it that way, but that is his only way out.
Yeah. But I think subconsciously, I think there's a part of him that wants to get out of Dodge. I think that hot seat has gotten too hot even for him. And I don't think he thinks this in his forebrain, but, his one big successful mark was the economy. The economy was doing well. How much of that was left over from all the work Obama did? Well,
Oh, of course.
No one's ever going to agree on that. However,
he inherited a great economy,
Yeah. And now he's tanking it with the tariffs and the fight with China.
I know.
And you are starting to see, again, groups that have supported him. There are some that have come out against him now. Not the major ones, but some of the smaller farmer groups have said that they'll never recover because people are going to other places. And so, like I said, I think that there's a part of him that wants to be done with it because I think he's almost exhausted himself. I think he's almost talked himself to death.
Yeah. I think you're right. And he is eviscerating the agriculture sector of the economy. It's going to take more than a decade to recover from the damage he is doing right now to the agriculture sector. It's awful. And for no reason other than he talked tough on China and about tariffs during the campaign. So he has to continue to hold that position, and it's doing terrible damage.
And even Fox has been taking some swipes at him lately. From Shep Smith, right? He's the one. He's taking swats at him the whole time. But there's more. There was a thing, Judge Napellantino or something, who is their a former judge who's their advisor, just scorched Trump on
Napolitano.
Yeah, just scorched Trump on a bunch of different stuff. And so it's even when Fox starts to have a little bit of distance, they're kind of going back and forth, but they're definitely more outspoken in more ways than they've ever been before. So we're going to see. You think he may still get reelected? I certainly hope you're wrong, but
Well, I hope I am too, but I can. What I can see playing out is because all the polls indicate him being beaten by whoever the Democratic nominee is. But the problem is those polls, again, just as in 2016, those polls are measuring popular vote. So I think what could happen is he could lose the popular vote. In fact, I'm sure that he will lose the popular vote again, probably by an even larger margin this time, but he might still carry all the same states. And even in the states where the agriculture sector is being decimated, there's polling data that shows that, you've got some of these groups that are starting to turn on him a little bit, but most farmers are still with him because there is this very strange thing. And again, it goes to, I talk about it on my show a lot, the hold that he has on these people. It really is the cult of Trump, this almost hypnotic hold that he has over these people, where some of these farmers that I see being interviewed online, in these different articles, in videos, etc., they take this attitude like, well, gee, it's really terrible. The farm went bankrupt and I've lost my livelihood and my life is basically ruined, but he's my president. I voted for him and he must know something more than me. He's rich and successful, and who am I to question him? And, of course I'll vote for him again. I mean, it's amazing. And that's why I think he still has a great shot at winning re-election. Because if you're a Trump supporter, what these farmers who still support him have shown is, if you're a supporter of Trump, Trump can literally ruin your life, and you'll still go, well, he's my president, and I'm going to vote for him again. So I don't know how you beat someone like that, someone who has that kind of a mesmerizing hold over his followers. It really is like a cult. How do you overcome that? So I think what may happen is he'll lose the popular vote again, but he'll still carry all those states and he'll win re-election. I think it's I actually think it's more likely than unlikely, to be honest with you. I know it's astonishing to contemplate, but I think it's very likely.
So tell me again, and we'll be right back with Matt Connarton here on the Dr. Kevin Show. Well, he kills more of our focus.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
911, what is your emergency?
My kid shot himself.
All right, where's the wound, sir?
911, what's your emergency?
Please help. My son shot his brother.
911, what is your emergency? Okay.
911, please state your emergency.
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns.
It wasn't locked.
Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. I'm here with Matt Connarton as we're catching up from the summer, talking about the fall and politics and what's going on. And it's the 2019 New Hampshire Democratic Party State Convention, which is happening in Manchester 2 days from now, and they're expecting all the candidates to be there, Matt. I looked it up.
Oh, okay. Oh, very good.
So, yep. So I'm gonna be there for that, and I'm gonna be there for a couple of other events. But so, who do you think right now, watching everything going on, if somebody was going to beat I almost said Mayor Pete. If somebody is going to beat Donald Trump, who do you think actually would have the best chance?
Oh, boy. It's
Not
very
who you would
hard to
vote
say.
for.
Right. No, I know. Yeah, I mean, I think Biden right now would have a very tough time because I think there might be some cognitive impairment going on with Biden. I'm not sure. Maybe Elizabeth Warren. Bernie, I think, may have missed his moment. I think if Bernie had been the nominee in 2016, he might have been able to beat him. I'm not so sure about now. Kamala Harris, I have some concerns about her, but I think she would be strong. She, I think, would do well against Trump in debates. I think she would look really good kind of standing up to him in those debates. She would be tough. Cory Booker as well, actually. I think Cory Booker would do very well. It's hard to say, though. You know, my favorite candidate is Tulsi of the pack, but she has no chance of being the nominee.
So I'm going to ask the question, and then I've got a couple other questions that I want to ask along these lines, and I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface. You know, there's been starting to be some grumblings with Kamala Harris and her prosecutional record and some mixed things, which says that she's actually turning off some of the African American voters. Do you think that that tide might be turning against her, or do you think that's just tight?
Well, I think that with Kamala Harris, I think there's a real concern that she has a history of being a drug warrior, and you know, I mean, that's one of the concerns that I have as someone who opposes the drug war. You know, and she's I mean, there's this odd video of her talking about, you know, prosecuting parents for the truancy of their children and making them responsible for that and this and that. There are some odd things in her history as a prosecutor. You know, she tried to prosecute the guys who started that website, Backpage.com, even though they hadn't broken the law. She tried to, you know, very publicly make an example of them. There are some troubling things in her history as a prosecutor. I don't think those are disqualifiers for the presidency, certainly, and she seems to have evolved on a little bit on the war on drugs. She now supports legalization of cannabis. But it's an interesting dynamic to see her debating Biden in these debates. You know, they had a couple of obviously high-profile showdowns, one of them over busing and the other over health care. But I haven't seen them really have any kind of a back and forth over, you know, things like criminal justice, because Biden, of course, as part of that crime bill in the 90s, he and she may be very much on the same page in terms of that whole quote-unquote tough on crime posture that the Democrats tried to take in the 90s to, you know, be sort of Republican light. In the long term, I mean, I think she'll have strong African American support no matter what. But I think she takes that for granted at her peril. And, you know, it's certainly not guaranteed. I mean, Joe Biden has a lot of African American support. So does Bernie. You know, I'm not sure what she's done or what she can do to kind of shore up that support for herself. They're probably, I mean, a lot of African Americans are probably more apt to want to go for Cory Booker because he's been much more forthright about wanting to, you know, end the war on drugs and do more on criminal justice reform than Kamala has. So I'm not sure.
Well, one of the interesting things that's in play is that there was a whole group of Democrats that sat out voting last time because they didn't like Hillary and they thought Bernie got screwed, and they just didn't bother to show up. And this time, the whole anyone but Trump movement, that kind of unity. I mean, these candidates are going at each other to some degree, and probably Kamala Harris has been one of the more vocal at attacking other people, other Democratic candidates. But they're not getting down and dirty into a lot of the mud stuff that I've seen in debates before, like how do you support somebody after you've said all these horrible things about them? And so, I'm still thinking about he could still win because he could still take these states. But, we look and how many Republicans are, for whatever reason, not running again, are dropping out like flies? I mean, there's all sorts of unexpected that were safe Republican zones that seem to be a little bit more shaky. So I'm not so sure he's going to get all of those states again. And I think if the states that he didn't win by very much, very close percentages. But, one of the questions I wanted to have, and let's say hypothetically, let's say he loses by even more than he did before, popular vote, which I think is a no-brainer, but he manages to pull off the Electoral College. Now, tell me again how you're defending this institution. That would have been the third time in 20 years or something that the popular vote was not who ended up as president.
Well, yeah, it's pretty hard to defend. I mean, I have no defense of it.
But I thought
I think you
were. Am I remembering
wrong?
Am I is that what he said? You used to be pro-electoral college, I thought.
No. To be honest, I think it should be by popular vote. But what you might be thinking of is I'm incredibly skeptical that it will ever be changed. I honestly don't think it ever will be. But I think it should be done by popular vote.
Well, and the simple solution there is that it's mandatory that the electoral votes are split up by the percentages. If 45 presented for Trump and 55 voted for Mayor Pete, that he gets 55% of the electoral votes, and it should not be a winner take all. That's where it does not serve the American people. That one thing right there. All of the states where it's winner take all, and then there was a state that recently there was an issue and they got sued because the person that they elected didn't want to vote for Hillary and didn't vote for Hillary, even though the state voted for Hillary, because once you give your power to whoever the person is that represents you to electoral college, they can do whatever they want.
Right, which is very rare, but yes, it does happen. I know what you're referring to. I forget what state that was. And ultimately that person not doing that would not have had any effect, but in terms of who won. But yeah, I would love, honestly, in a perfect world, I would love to see the electoral college system go away. I would love it.
Okay.
I just don't think we're going to see it.
Well, we'll see. It kind of depends on who goes in, and they're saying that the Senate is more open for that there could be a Republican upset because more seats have opened up that are at least not quite as a guaranteed Republican vote as they have been, because Trump has picked up a lot of the moderates.
Well, I think what's happening there, because yes, we're seeing a record number of Republicans exiting, but I think what's happening there is, I think they see a reckoning coming after Trump. I don't think it has anything to do with the 2020 election. I think it has to do with what happens afterward. Because if Trump is defeated in 2020, or if he wins and then he's finally gone in 2024, everybody in the Republican Party who stuck by him or who was silent and who was complicit in their silence with all the racism and all the other nonsense, all the corruption, they're going to be held accountable. They're not going to be able to escape. They can go along to get along for now. But once Trump is gone, these people are going to be held accountable for why they sat back and said nothing, why they were apparently okay with, as we discussed earlier, for example, the send her back chance against Ilhan Omar in North Carolina. They're going to be held accountable. So if they want to have a political career in the future, they got to get out now and think about maybe coming back later when Trump is gone. They need to disassociate from him now. And then they can try to get cute with it later when they do come back and say, oh, well, the reason I got out is because I couldn't stand by that president anymore, even though that's not what they said at the time. And people have short enough memories. A lot of them will get away with it. I firmly believe that's why Paul Ryan got out when he did. He didn't want to be associated with this president. But we all know Paul Ryan wants to be president at some point in the future. So that's what I think is going on. It's not so much that they think they're going to go down with the ship in the short term, but they're worried about being held accountable in the long run. So they've got to get some distance now, because the reckoning will come. Because Trump's hold over his base, that's Trump's hold over them. But that doesn't transfer to everybody else. His base isn't going to be loyal to everybody else. They're loyal to Trump and Trump alone. So that's what I think is going on while all these Republicans are exiting.
Now, there seems to be a way decreased, as far as I've seen, calls for impeachment. They seem to have got quiet in the last few weeks.
Well,
have you noticed that?
Yeah, well, it bubbles up and calms down and bubbles up and calms down. I hate to say it. I mean, in principle, yes, they should move to impeach. But politically, I understand why Pelosi doesn't want to, because we know where it ends up. The House can begin their investigations and ultimately vote to impeach, and then Trump is tried in the Senate, and then they acquit him. I'm not sure if that's technically the correct term when it's an impeachment trial, but whatever. They will exonerate Trump, and then Trump now plays the victim. Oh, look what the Democrats tried to do to me, which actually energizes his base even further, and actually makes him stronger going into the 2020 election, not weaker. So I think impeachment completely backfires. So in principle, they should do it. Of course they should do it. But politically, I understand why Pelosi doesn't want to, because it's not going to end up harming Trump. If anything, it's going to end up helping him.
I've wondered something hypothetically, and there is a half a dozen more things going on that I wanted to talk to you about in this show politically to kind of keep this energy going. I'm just back after the summer off, and I'm putting stuff together. Are you available to join me next week at the same time to finish up these conversations?
Oh, absolutely. I would love it. Yes, definitely. Count me in.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have you back on next week so we can talk about this, and I will have already had my New Hampshire Democratic Party state convention experience.
Yes.
So, because I've got some other people booked, but for whatever reason, with all the craziness, next week was open anyway. So I was just thinking, who am I going to bring on? But we have not even scratched the surface of what we need to talk about with this stuff. So next week, stay tuned for Matt to come back on, because there are some questions I've got. But and I know we're going to be almost out of time in a second. But so I want to ask this thing. What would happen, and would it even be possible, if the movement to impeach Trump were to happen in the spring or summer of 2020?
Well, sure, but like I was saying, it's only going to help him.
Well, it depends on how long the House stays in the impeachment mode. Because I've had this odd thought, and I'm probably just crazier than a hoot owl, and I'm okay. But what happens if they ran the impeachment up to the point where they rolled the dice that the Senate could end up Democratic before the impeachment part of it got to them, and it tied them up during elections?
It's a tantalizing thought. I don't know.
We're going to see next week. Come back for the Dr. Kevin Show and part 2, catching up with Unleashed Matt Connarton. Have a good week.
Thank you, Dr. Kevin. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.